right, guys, now we are going to be creating a mosaic collage. So a mosaic collage, or first of all, what a mosaic is when small little pieces are arranged together to create an overall pattern or an overall picture. For this collage, we're going to be using the shape triangle in many different geometric shapes, tall and skinny. You can even be all fancy with geometry and be like isosceles and equilateral. And we're also going to be using negative space, which we'll talk more about later in this video. So let's talk about what you're going to need. You're going to need your drawing paper, that heavier paper but not as heavy as your watercolor paper, a big old magazine. You can always get more from Mrs. Cantrell and I, scissors, an envelope to keep your magazine clippings in, a handy dandy glue stick, and of course a messy mat so that you don't get our tables all sticky and gross for the person that sits at your seat next. All right, so mosaic with your chosen color scheme. So we talked a little bit about one of these color schemes already in our last activity. We talked about analogous, but now we're going to be talking about some other color schemes that are available to you guys to use. I want you to choose a color scheme going into this mosaic collage. Remember, analogous is colors that are touching on the color wheel. Then we have complementary. Colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel are considered to be complementary colors. So you got to draw a line across the color wheel. Blue and green is a great example. Blue and orange, red and green, yellow and violet. We have split complementary, which is a variation of complementary color scheme. In addition to the base color, it uses the two colors adjacent to its complement. So you go across the color wheel, but then you go on either side. If you're using red and green, you would also use yellow-green and blue-green. Same thing for orange, you'd use blue, blue-green, and blue-violet. Then we have the triadic color wheel, which is a color scheme that uses a triangle around it, and that you can kind of turn the triangle, but it's evenly spaced around. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your color. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your color. 1, 2, 3, 4, that's your color. Then we have the rectangle or tetradic color scheme, and these are 4 colors that are arranged into 2 complementary pairs. So it could be yellow and violet, but then it would be orange and blue. So you want to make sure that the pairs that you use are complementary. Then we have monochromatic, which is a single color in a range of hues. If you kind of think of like a paint chip that you get at the store, so you're going to be choosing one of these to go with. I am going to do analogous. I'm going to use the whole rainbow. All right, so let's get our magazine. And it's important to have a ruler just to kind of know how big you want your triangles to be. Your triangles really shouldn't be any bigger than, I would say, 3 inches, especially since our paper is only 6 by 9. So if you stay 3 and under inches, and just know that some of your triangles are going to be super, super, super tiny to fit into certain spaces. When you begin cutting, look for big chunks of areas that you can get a good triangle out of, those 2 to 3 inch areas. When you go into cutting your magazine, just like I'm doing, make really imperfect cuts and then start to sort your colors. So I'm showing you here that you should be making piles, even though I did all the rainbow colors, like every single one of my triangles has all the rainbow in it. If I wanted to do analogous, another way I could do it is I could make a pile of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. So that's what you see me doing here. And these cuts are super, super rough, and that's okay. I'm going to continue to find my colors now. right, now that I have all of my colors clipped, I'm ready to make everything into a nice, clean looking triangle. So everything kind of looks pretty janky right now. So I'm going to show you guys a little trick. So the easiest way to make a triangle is to cut a square or a rectangle out of your clippings. We want to make sure it looks really nice. And then to cut a diagonal line into that square or rectangle. What's great about this is from this triangle, depending on where you cut, if you cut on one of the axes, maybe that would be the right term, one of the corners, you can actually make smaller triangles. So what I recommend doing is cutting a bunch of triangles to start. You can always go back and cut more triangles, but I think it's really great to have a little stockpile of triangles to choose from. All right, boom, that's done. Look at all those fancy schmancy triangles. Gorgeous. So now it is time to glue. Just like the analogous collage that we did in the last video, you guys are going to be using your messy mat to glue on so you make your space nice for the next person around you. Now, when you are working with these triangles, it's going to be really, really important that you keep one hand dirty, keep one hand clean as you're working, because they might end up getting wrinkled and stuff if you get them too wet. So when you're doing the triangles, you also don't have to cover the whole entire thing in glue. You can just cover the edges like I'm applying right now. When you apply your triangles to the paper, it is very important to leave negative space. That means white space surrounding the triangles. That's going to help it have that mosaic look that we see in traditional tiles and things like that. So another great tip for you guys is before you ever glue, just kind of test out your piece to see how it looks. Some of you might even want to test out a whole area or section of your mosaic before gluing anything down. I don't recommend doing the whole entire paper just with practicing. I recommend doing like little areas at a time. And as you can see, I'm continuing to leave that negative space. Some spaces are bigger, some are smaller. And I'm going to continue to work across my whole paper. You're going to notice that I cut as I go too. If I find that a triangle doesn't quite fit, I can cut it and make sure that it does fit. Whoops, my triangle went over the page. So what do? Turn your page around and clip off that triangle so it fits nicely with your mosaic. And keep on keeping on. All right, guys, so the very last step of the mosaic collage is to cut any teeny tiny triangles to fill in any big spots of white space, and then, of course, to flip your paper over and clip any excess triangles that are going over the page. Fantastic work. You made a mosaic collage. Whoop, whoop.